Let's talk a little bit about what happened during Super Tuesday here in Utah. The top takeaway, Donald Trump won the Utah GOP caucuses. He got about 57% of the vote. Joe Biden won the Democratic primary with nearly 88% of the vote. The big story coming out of Tuesday night, at least on the Republican side, was the amount of chaos that engulfed the caucus meetings. Here's the backstory. In 2019, the Utah legislature passed a law saying that there would be a presidential primary election in the state on Super Tuesday, but parties could opt out. The Utah GOP decided to hold a presidential preference vote at their neighborhood caucus meetings, which are held every 2 years on a Tuesday evening. They spent a lot of money promoting it. They had an online pre-registration system. And then when Tuesday rolled around, there were lots of problems, mostly in Salt Lake County. Some of the schools where they were holding these caucus meetings, they didn't have internet access. People who had pre-registered couldn't get the special QR code showing that they had pre-registered. There were long lines and lots of frustration. There were reports that at one high school, more than 2,000 people waited in line because they couldn't get checked in because of these technical issues. The chaos from Tuesday's caucus really upset a number of Republican voters. Our reporter who was at one of the caucus locations interviewed a Republican voter named Evelyn Ames who said, quote, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever been in. It's a pure waste of my time." Once they got past all the technical difficulties, the counting process was extremely slow. They didn't release the first round of results until midnight, and that was only 66% of the precincts that had submitted ballots. On the other side, Democrats used a state-run mail-in balloting system. They got their ballots 3 weeks early. People just popped their ballots in the mail, or they could vote in person on Election Day. Compare that to what the Republicans did, where people had to go to a specific place on a Tuesday night and had to spend hours at these meetings in order to vote in a presidential nominating contest. The Utah GOP should have seen this coming. In 2016, they held a party-run presidential vote at their caucus meetings, and there was higher than expected turnout. People stood in line for hours in bad weather. That year, since the Republicans opted out of a presidential primary, it forced the Utah Democrats to do the same thing because the legislature didn't want to pay for a primary for just one party. Here's a fun fact. In 2016, the Republican Party in Utah tried to experiment with online voting as part of the presidential vote. It was a disaster. People couldn't log in. There were all sorts of technical problems. Even a month after the election happened, they were still unable to provide a complete tally of all the votes cast. So why did the party try to do it again this year? They wanted to highlight the caucus system, which is part of the process here in Utah, used to nominate candidates. I'm not sure that that went the way they wanted it to after the troubles on Tuesday night. And the other reason? The party charged presidential campaigns $50,000 to appear on the ballot. There were 6 candidates, so they pocketed a cool $300,000. You have to wonder if those candidates felt like they got their money's worth.